Have you ever wondered how ordinary citizens can bring about extraordinary change in society? Have you ever thought about the limits of civil disobedience and its impact on creating a sense of collective belonging? Well, in today's video, we will dive into these topics and explore the power of civil disobedience in shaping the course of Indian history. We all have heard the phrase, civil disobedience, before. But what does it actually mean? Well, civil disobedience refers to the act of intentionally breaking the law or disobeying a government's orders as a form of protest against injustice or oppression. The concept of civil disobedience has been employed by various social movements throughout history to bring about social, economic, and political change. Students, we have already covered modern nationalism, the First World War, the Khilafat movement, non-cooperation, and differing strands within the movement in the previous EduRev videos. So, to complete this chapter, we will be covering the following topics in this video. First, towards civil disobedience, in which we will further study about its introduction, the Salt March or the civil disobedience movement, and how participants saw the movement. Second, the limits of civil disobedience. Third, the sense of collective belonging. To start with, let us understand India at a crossroads, the road to independence and the challenges along the way, or simply put, introduction towards civil disobedience. The year was 1922 and India was at a crossroads. Mahatma Gandhi had withdrawn from the non-cooperation movement due to increasing violence, and Congress leaders were grappling with the way forward. Some leaders, such as C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, formed the Swaraj party and wanted to participate in provincial council elections, while others, such as Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhas Chandra Bose, pushed for more radical mass agitation and full independence. However, events outside of India were also having a significant impact on the country's political landscape. From 1926, agricultural prices began to fall, leading to a decline in exports and difficulties for peasants to pay their revenue. By 1930, the Indian countryside was in turmoil due to the worldwide economic depression. The British government also set up a statutory commission under Sir John Simon in response to the nationalist movement to review the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. The commission faced opposition in India as it had no Indian members, leading to protests with the slogan, "Go back, Simon." All parties, including the Congress and the Muslim League, took part in the demonstrations against the commission. In October 1929, Viceroy Lord Irwin announced a vague offer of dominion status for India and a roundtable conference to discuss a future constitution. This offer did not satisfy Congress leaders, who saw it as a half-hearted attempt to delay the inevitable. The radicals, led by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhas Chandra Bose, became more assertive and demanded full independence for India. In December 1929, the Lahore Congress, under Nehru's presidency, formalized the demand for Purna Swaraj, or full independence for India. On 26 January 1930, the Indian National Congress celebrated Independence Day for the first time when people were to take a pledge to struggle for complete independence, but the celebrations received little attention. To make the concept of freedom more relatable, Mahatma Gandhi sought to connect it to concrete issues of everyday life. So, the struggle for independence was complicated by external economic factors, as well as the British government's reluctance to grant full independence. However, the persistent efforts of leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru eventually led to the formalization of the demand for full independence. Let us now move on to the Salt March or the civil disobedience movement, Gandhi's fight for Indian independence. Once again, Gandhi found himself in the middle of a fight for Indian independence. It was the year 1930, and the British colonial government had been ruling India for over 200 years. The Indian National Congress, led by Gandhi, had been peacefully protesting British rule for years, but it seemed like the government was not listening. So, Gandhi decided to take drastic action. On January 31, 1930, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin with 11 demands to unite Indian society. The most significant of these demands was the abolition of the salt tax, which affected both the rich and the poor. Gandhi gave Irwin an ultimatum: if the demands were not met by March 11, Congress would launch a civil disobedience campaign. However, Irwin refused to negotiate, and Gandhi knew he had to take action. And so, on March 12, 1930, Gandhi and 78 volunteers began the Salt March. They walked 240 miles from Sabarmati to Dandi, making speeches along the way, advocating for peaceful defiance and Swaraj, self-rule. Thousands of people gathered to hear Gandhi speak, and his message of non-violent resistance resonated with many. On April 6, Gandhi reached Dandi and broke the law by making salt from seawater. This act of civil disobedience was followed by the civil disobedience movement. This movement was different from the non-cooperation movement, as people were asked to break colonial laws. Non-cooperation movement means refusing to cooperate with British government. But civil disobedience movement means refusing to obey the laws formed by the British. Thousands broke the salt law, boycotted foreign cloth, and picketed liquor shops. Peasants refused to pay taxes, village officials resigned, and forest people violated forest laws. The colonial government was not pleased with the movement, and they arrested Congress leaders, leading to violent clashes and repressive measures. However, the Indian people were determined to fight for their freedom, and the movement continued. But then, Gandhi called off the movement and agreed to participate in the Roundtable conference in London. The government released political prisoners in return. However, negotiations in London broke down, and Gandhi returned disappointed. Back in India, the government started a new cycle of repression, and Gandhi relaunched the movement. The civil disobedience movement continued for over a year but lost momentum by 1934. Despite this, Gandhi's efforts remained a significant part of India's struggle for independence. In summary, Gandhi's Salt March and the civil disobedience movement were pivotal in India's fight for independence, inspiring peaceful defiance and uniting the Indian people against British colonial rule. Also, do you know that CBSE repeats previous questions in board exams? So while studying any topic, you can also practice the previous year's question papers on EduRev to understand the level and the variety of questions that are asked in the exam. Moving on, let us now explore diverse social groups with different motivations and goals, or how participants saw the movement. Just like other movements in India, the civil disobedience movement was not just a singular movement with a singular group of people. It was a movement that involved a variety of social groups, each with their own motivations and goals. One of the groups that participated in the movement was the rich peasant communities, such as the Patidars of Gujarat and the Jats of Uttar Pradesh. These communities were hit hard by the trade depression and falling prices and supported the movement to fight against high revenues. However, they were disappointed when the movement was called off without any revision to the revenue rates. On the other hand, the poorer peasantry, who struggled with rent payments to their landlords, joined radical movements led by socialists and communists, and had an uncertain relationship with Congress due to Congress' reluctance to support no-rent campaigns. The Indian merchants and industrialists played a significant role in the movement. They made huge profits during World War I and opposed colonial policies that restricted business activities. They formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress, 1920 and the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, FICCI, 1927 to support their interests. Initially, they supported the civil disobedience movement but became apprehensive later. As India fought for its independence, the country was a melting pot of diverse social groups, each with its own struggles, aspirations, and limitations. Two such groups were the industrial working class and women. The industrial working class had limited participation in the movement. Many of them distanced themselves from Congress as industrialists came closer to the political party. However, some workers participated in boycotts of foreign goods, strikes, and protests. They were determined to fight for their rights, even if it meant going against the grain. Unfortunately, Congress was reluctant to include workers' demands in its program. On the other hand, women played a significant role in the movement. They participated in large numbers in various activities, from listening to Gandhiji to protest marches, manufacturing salt, and picketing liquor shops. Women from high-caste urban families and rich peasant rural households all saw service to the nation as a sacred duty. Despite their involvement, the position of women in society did not change significantly. Gandhiji believed that women's primary duty was in the home, which limited their participation in positions of authority within the organization. Unfortunately, Congress was also reluctant to allow women in positions of power, perpetuating the status quo. Next, we move on to the second topic of this video, which is the limits of civil disobedience. Or you can say, political turmoil and fractured movements as India struggled for independence. As India fought for its independence, the country was a hotbed of political turmoil, with various groups vying for recognition and representation within the movement. The untouchables, or Dalits, felt ignored by Congress due to fears of offending conservative high-caste Hindus. However, Gandhi aimed to eliminate untouchability, calling them Harijan, children of God, and advocating for their rights to public spaces and amenities. Despite his efforts, Dalit participation in the civil disobedience movement remained limited as many Dalit leaders sought political solutions such as reserved seats in educational institutions and separate electorates. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a prominent Dalit leader, organized the Dalits into the Depressed Classes Association in 1930. He clashed with Gandhi at the Second Roundtable Conference, demanding separate electorates for Dalits. Following Gandhi's fast unto death, Ambedkar agreed to the Pune Pact, which provided reserved seats for depressed classes but with a general electorate. The Dalit movement remained cautious of the Congress-led national movement. Many Muslim organizations felt alienated from Congress after the decline of the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. Congress's association with Hindu nationalist groups and communal clashes further deepened the divide between Hindus and Muslims. Efforts to forge unity between Congress and the Muslim League failed due to disagreements over representation in future assemblies. Jinnah was willing to give up separate electorates in exchange for reserved seats and proportional representation in Muslim-dominated provinces, but negotiations fell apart. As a result, when the civil disobedience movement started, there was already suspicion and distrust between Hindus and Muslims. Many Muslims felt alienated from Congress and were concerned about their status as a minority within India. Large sections of Muslims did not respond to the call for a united struggle during the civil disobedience movement, leading to a fractured and divided movement. In the end, let's understand the role of symbols and cultural identity in India's fight for independence or the sense of collective belonging. In India, nationalism and collective belonging were the driving forces behind the country's fight for independence. People believed that they were part of the same nation, united by shared experiences and cultural processes. To promote this feeling of unity, history, fiction, folklore, songs, popular prints, and symbols were used to contribute to nationalism. In the 20th century, India's identity was associated with the image of Bharat Mata. Created by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay in the 1870 through the hymn, Vande Mataram, the image evolved over time, and devotion to it signified nationalism. This visual symbol of national identity became a source of inspiration for the people. Nationalists also recorded folk tales, songs, and legends to preserve traditional culture. Rabindranath Tagore and Natesa Sastry were prominent figures in the folk revival movement. Folklore was considered national literature and a representation of people's true thoughts and characteristics. Nationalist leaders used icons and symbols to inspire unity and nationalism. Tricolor flags were designed during the Swadeshi movement and by Gandhiji. Carrying and displaying the flag became a symbol of defiance. Indians sought to instill pride in the nation by reinterpreting history. They focused on the glorious achievements in ancient times, followed by a period of decline under colonization. Nationalist histories aimed to inspire pride and a desire for change. However, there were issues in unifying people. When the glorified past was predominantly Hindu, people of other communities felt excluded. The challenge was to create a sense of unity while maintaining the diverse cultural identity of India. In conclusion, civil disobedience has been employed throughout history as a means to bring about social, economic, and political change. This video explored the power of civil disobedience and its impact on creating a sense of collective belonging. Despite the challenges faced, the Indian people were determined to fight for their freedom, and civil disobedience played a crucial role in shaping the course of history. With this, we come to the end of the second chapter, Nationalism in India. We hope that you have understood the topic. You can now study chapter notes, watch video lectures and solve MCQ tests of this chapter on EduRev to ensure you score well in your board exams. And that's not all. You also get amazing courses for maths, science, English, Hindi, and much more for class 10. Thank you.